ready, set, ready, go. Set, ready, set, go, go.
In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive look at the Bodyguard 2.0, break down the pluses and minuses of the firearm we've encountered, and dispel some of the common myths occasionally tossed out on social media. To assist us on this journey, our famous ranking map will be making another appearance. This is the same map as from our 2000 round review. Some of our thoughts will be similar, but others have changed. Speaking of changes, first let's briefly hit on a square we got wrong the first time around: cleaning. In our 2000 round review, I wrongly stated that you have to pull the trigger to field strip the firearm. This is incorrect. To field strip the Bodyguard 2.0, first ensure the firearm is unloaded. Lock the action open and press down on the ejector. You may need to use the small object like the back of a ballpoint pen if you have large fingers. With the ejector pressed down, you can then rotate the takedown lever and remove the slide without having to pull the trigger. This bumps the cleaning score way up in my book. The firearm is very easy to clean and maintain. My Bodyguard 2.0 has only been cleaned 2 times so far, each time after around 2,000 rounds. Now, before we get into the rest of our ranking squares, let's first tackle some common myths. Keep in mind that the points presented today are relative to my Bodyguard 2.0 and the handful that I have first-hand experience with. Just because I have such an experience is not a guarantee you will have the same experience. I would encourage you to ask one simple question if you see one of these myths tossed out on social media. Ask how many rounds the person making the claim has through their Bodyguard 2.0. You may run into people that have zero firsthand experience, or others that are just repeating something they saw previously. Some will have 50, 100, maybe 200 rounds through their firearm, and others still will be an unfortunate soul who got that rare lemon. Myth 1. The Bodyguard 2.0 does not like flat-faced or hollow point ammo. My Bodyguard 2.0 has well north of 1,000 rounds of flat-face ammo through it, with at least that many of various hollow point ammo. The handful of failures encountered with flat-face ammo were mostly sweaty palms or cold hands failures, and not a gun problem. The vast majority of hollow point ammo I've tested functioned without fail. The only hollow point I found that my particular Bodyguard 2.0 does not like is the Fiocchi Dynamic Defense 90 grain jacketed hollow point. With Dynamic Defense, I encounter multiple failures with each magazine to the point where it is, for all intents and purposes, unusable in my firearm. The only other ammo I've encountered regular problems with is not a hollow point, Underwood Extreme Penetrator. And on a side note, external hollow point is an oxymoron marketing term. They're fluted bullets. The Extreme Penetrator round is nowhere near as bad as the Dynamic Defense, but I still encounter regular failures such that it is not an ammo I would trust out of my particular Bodyguard 2.0. Everything else I've tried, Spear Gold Dot, Remington Golden Saber, Hornady American Gunner, Winchester Silvertip, Federal Punch, SIG Elite Defense, Norma Monolithic Hollow Point, Barnes TAC XPD, Liberty Civil Defense, Federal HydraShock, Federal HydraShock Deep, Sierra Outdoor Master, and Hornady Critical Defense, which is not technically a hollow point with its FTX projectile. That's kind of like a ballistics tip. They've all been 100% reliable out of my Bodyguard 2.0. I probably left a few out of the list that didn't quickly come to mind, so there's that. Myth 2. The Bodyguard 2.0 shoots to the left and the sights are off. You'll occasionally see someone post on social media discussing poor quality control and how their sights are off. Let's be clear here. I'm not saying there's not the occasional firearm where the sights are off. Sometimes they come from the factory that way, and sometimes the gremlins who handle it in between before you bought it are at fault. If you are one of those rare individuals who gets a firearm where the sights are off, you may need to use a tool and drift the sights. Now comes the point that is challenging for many people to understand. Even when your sights are true, it is very common for most shooters to shoot an extremely narrow firearm a little to the left if they're right-handed, or a little to the right if they're left-handed. This is due to a combination of factors like the length of the trigger pull, the geometry of your hand, combined with trying to use the same grip as you would with a larger firearm. The video game warriors especially have a hard time understanding this concept. You'll often see them try and justify their point by saying something like,
I let the range officer shoot it, and they shoot it to the left.
Or, I shoot at XYZ level at my local competition, so I know it's not me. Range officers are there for your safety. They are not experts on every firearm with perfect technique across the board. Thinking the range officer is an expert with your firearm is like thinking a home plate umpire at a baseball game would hit a home run every time they step to the plate to bat. The people who try and use proficiency with another firearm to justify it not being them, they're my personal favorite. When you see that, ask, did you achieve that with your Bodyguard 2.0? And see how many answers you get where they say they use a full-size firearm that more often than not is a heavily customized competition rig and not some pocketable 380. A very simple test you can do if you think your firearm really is shooting to the right or the left is shoot a group with your offhand. We will shoot today. Let's do left-handed today. Here we go. I'm going to aim at the center mag, what we'll call the bullseye in the center. We're probably 3 inches to the right. Myth 3. The 12-round magazine only holds 11 rounds. A handful of early 12-round magazines had a follower with a bit of plastic that would enlarge in some of the holes on the side of the magazine. But the vast majority of people who have this issue don't understand how tight the magazine is. There's no extra space and no give. The 12-round magazines take breaking in, and even then, the majority of people will need to use a magazine loader to get that 12th round in. Such is the nature of the beast when cramming 12 rounds into an extremely tight space. If you need to see proof that it's possible to load a 12-round magazine to full capacity by hand, check out our +1 test video where we load the magazine to 12 multiple times with the help of the strong arm. It was far from easy, but it's certainly possible. Myth 4. The Bodyguard 2.0 is only good for 5 yards and end or contact range. Shooting a tiny gun with any type of accuracy at distance is extremely challenging, even for very experienced shooters. The combination of a tiny gun and a very short sight radius do not lend themselves to accurate shooting. Just like with all handguns, as distance increases, the challenge goes up. But with a tiny pocket gun, that challenge is magnified. That does not mean it's not possible to make an accurate long-distance shot. It just becomes much more challenging. The majority of my practice with the Bodyguard 2.0 is at targets set up between 10 and 25 yards. Most of the ranges we frequent don't allow targets closer than 10 yards. The 10-yard targets often have groups that are much better than the 25-yard targets, but with the amount of practice I have with my Bodyguard 2.0, I can consistently put hits on targets at 50 yards, and on a good day, put hits on the 100-yard gong. It's far from easy, and it's certainly not a shot I would take outside of the range, but in the right hands and in the right conditions, the Bodyguard 2.0 is much more capable than most shooters are of using it. Now that we have some of the common myths out of the way, let's revisit our favorite ranking map, starting with accuracy. As we mentioned a moment ago, the Bodyguard 2.0 can be a challenging pistol to shoot accurately at distance, but at the expected self-defense ranges, the firearm is very capable. The striker-fired trigger, low bore axis, and controllable recoil for a pocket 380 make for a pistol that many find easy to shoot and quick to get back on target for follow-up shots. Especially at the closer ranges, the Bodyguard 2.0 is capable of shooting very accurate and precise groups. When it comes to reliability, other than the dynamic defense and extreme penetrator rounds I've already mentioned, my Bodyguard 2.0 has been extremely reliable. Mine is also a firearm I don't have to worry about keeping clean. My Bodyguard 2.0, again, has only been cleaned a grand total of 2 times. Once after around 2,000-ish rounds, and a second time after 4,000-ish rounds. In both cases, the cleaning cloths were as dirty or worse than what my blowback 9mm carbines yield, but even when it's completely filthy, my Bodyguard 2.0 has never missed a beat. 4,000 rounds might seem like a number to where you might wonder if I've needed to replace any parts, like the recoil spring. My Bodyguard 2.0 still has all the original parts, and it shows no signs of slowing down. I did reach out to Smith & Wesson to see what they said about the spring lifespan, and while they didn't give an official number, the unofficial number they tossed out has me still probably a few years away from even thinking about it at our current use rate of the firearm. The recoil of the Bodyguard 2.0 is very manageable, especially when compared to other similar-sized pocket 380s. I find it to be significantly better than the LCP family of firearms and is closer to the SIG P365 380 than it is the LCP Max, but it is still a noticeable step up in recoil when compared to that P365 380, more so when compared to the Security 380 and the Easy 380. I wouldn't necessarily call it mild on the recoil, but it is approaching that mild recoil ballpark, which is big for a pocket 380. Concealability is one area where the Bodyguard 2.0 shines. It might be slightly less concealable for some compared to the single stack LCP and original Bodyguard, but for those of us not wearing skinny jeans, the Bodyguard 2.0 is still extremely concealable. From jeans to dockers to gym shorts, my Bodyguard 2.0 disappears in a pocket. The grip is one area where the Bodyguard 2.0 that I think is a bit of a double-edged sword. Many people will be able to get a full hand, 4-finger grip when using the 10-round magazine, though I find the grip to be on the narrow side. That makes it more challenging to get a straight trigger pull. While it has a fairly aggressive texture, when sweaty palms or numb hands come into play, I find the narrow grip wants to buck around in my hand when firing, which then leads to a limp wrist type failure. One big gripe many owners have is the loosey-goosey rear sight. For those who prefer a tighter, more precise shot, aftermarket sights are starting to trickle out, allowing users to find sights they prefer. As a self-defense, close defense firearm, I find the factory sights to be a nice mix between accuracy and speed, but if this were a target shooter or a range toy, I'd probably opt for a little different rear sight that's more of a target style sight.
Okay.
Compared to the long, double action only trigger of the original Bodyguard and LCP, the striker fire trigger of the Bodyguard 2.0 is a massive improvement. I find it to also be significantly better than the Ruger secure action trigger, but not quite as good as the trigger on, say, my P365 or Glock G42. Those are a little larger firearm, which could factor into that. The capacity of 10+1 and 12+1 make the Bodyguard 2.0 among the highest capacity pocket 380s available today. Where maximum concealability of a single stack isn't needed, the capacity of a double stack magazine-fed firearm like the Bodyguard 2.0 is a game changer. When it comes to cosmetics, as of the time of this video's creation, there is still only one flavor of Bodyguard 2.0 available, though with its popularity, I wouldn't be surprised to see some Performance Center edition that has blinged out parts eventually being offered. Just about the only area I can knock the Bodyguard 2.0 is the easy rack. The Bodyguard 2.0 is not sold as an easy rack firearm, so this one is a little nitpicky. The stout recoil spring, combined with a very narrow build of the firearm, make the Bodyguard 2.0 in the more challenging to articulate the slide bucket, especially with sweaty palms. Something like a failure to eject or even a simple snap cap failure drill can be very challenging or nigh impossible to overcome. In our LCP Max versus Bodyguard 2.0 snap cap video, for example, we had to resort to using gloves more than once to be able to clear the failure we induced. And finally, value. Priced in the $399 ballpark, the Bodyguard 2.0 is an excellent value for money buy. It is very concealable, very easy to carry, extremely reliable, easier to shoot than many other pocket 380s in its class, and very accurate at the expected ranges. Other than preferring a different rear sight, the Bodyguard 2.0 is a hard pistol for me to find any major flaws with, even after more than 4,000 rounds. Well, anyway, that seems like the perfect spot to end today's video. If you enjoyed today's presentation, like the video and share it with your friends and family. That helps the channel greatly. Fred and I really appreciate you getting this far. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day. Here we go, Bodyguard 2.0 at the right-hand target. Okay. Again, from here, it's hard to tell exactly the count. I'm going to speculate 10 of 10. If I can tell and I'm wrong, we'll get the alert pop up.